everyone, it's Laurie. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today I'm making some trash to treasure DIYs. I'm making 3 Harry Potter potion bottles, a witch owl, and a witch's in hat, and I'm using some Dollar Tree supplies. If you're new here and visiting for the first time, please consider clicking that little red subscribe button below. I'm starting my first trash to treasure project by using 3 pieces of wood that I found in my kindling bin. They originally were ends of fence posts, and my husband just cut them up and we were going to use them to start our wood stove. They're not in the best shape, so I'm using this Dollar Tree sanding block and I'm just kind of rubbing off the rough edges. My wood blocks are 8, 10, and 11 inches tall, but for this project, because you can manipulate the size of the labels, just about anything will work. Now that they're all cleaned up, I'm going to paint them with my wizard colors. I chose purple, green, and orange acrylic paint. These are the colors that I chose, but once again, just about any color would work for this project. Once they're all dry, I'm going to be adding on these Harry Potter labels. They're free printables that I found on Pinterest, and I will link that below in my description. To attach them in place, I'm using some of my Mod Podge. I'm just adding some to the back of my label, and then I'm placing it on the front of the bottle. Once I have it attached, I'm then using my Mod Podge and giving the bottle a complete coat. By doing this, it helps hold the label in place and it gives the bottle a nice shine. My next label is one of Professor Snape's potions, and I'm just following the exact same instructions to attach it. When I'm done, I'm once again giving it a coat of Mod Podge. For my third label, I'm adding on the Floo powder, and if you follow Harry Potter, you know how important this was for all the witches and wizards to travel through the Floo network. While I'm finishing up, I wanted to share with you today that I'm participating in my monthly collab group, and it's hosted by Liana from Liana DIY, and this month our guest host is Josie from Josie's Crafts. They both have amazing channels along with my other crafty friends, so please be sure to check out the Trash to Treasure playlist. I'll have that linked below in my description. If this is your first time stopping by, please consider clicking the red subscribe button below, leaving me a big thumbs up, and tapping on the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a new video. Now that all 3 of them are dry, I'm going to give them faux caps on the top, so I'm using 3 different styles of ribbon from the Dollar Tree. To add the ribbon cap, I'm just measuring the ribbon around the top of the bottle and I'm cutting it to size. When I'm done, I'm adding on some hot glue and then attaching the ribbon. After I had my ribbon added to the first bottle, I then continued on and added the different ribbons to the next 2 bottles. When making these trash to treasure potion bottles, you can use scraps of ribbon or jute, or you can even leave the tops painted. Just use anything that you have on hand. Now that I have all 3 of my potion bottles complete, it's time to decorate them. I'm starting with my Snape bottle, and I'm adding on this black netting, and actually I'm going to be adding this netting onto all 3 of the potion bottles. It's the outside netting to the Dollar Tree dice that I've used in a bunch of my past projects, so I just hung on to the outside covering. I placed it over the top of the bottle and then hot glued the little gathered end to the back. Being a trash to treasure project, I just added on a few random items that I had left over from Dollar Tree supplies. And the witch hat is actually one of the Dollar Tree wooden stickers. I then just used my glue gun and attached them all in place. Now that I'm done, my Snape potion bottle is complete. For my Floo powder potion, I'm adding on the same black netting. And for another accent piece, I'm using this Dollar Tree black boa. I'm cutting off a piece and I'm attaching it around the top. When I'm done, I'm adding on 2 of these little 3D bat stickers that I had in my stash, along with a bat from the Dollar Tree. Now that I have all my pieces in place, it's time to finish up my last bottle of potion. For my world's finest Skelegro, I'm adding on another one of the Dollar Tree dice nets. I was so happy I could recycle them, and I think they look like spider webs. Around the neck of the bottle, I'm going to be using a strip of this creepy cloth that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. Attaching it was super easy. I just wrapped it around the top of my bottle and I tied it into a knot on the side. Because this is Skelegro, I want to add some skeletons, and I'm going to use these 2 skulls. I think they came off of some Dollar Tree flowers. And then I'm going to use one of these skeletons that came on this Dollar Tree garland pack. To make them all match in color, I'm going to give each of them a coat of this white acrylic paint. When they're all dry, and I think he looks even creepier white, I'm going to then attach him using my glue gun to the top of my bottle. Then once he's in place, I'm going to attach both of his hands to the top. To add to the creep factor, I'm going to take a pen and darken the eyes on both of my skulls. Then taking my glue gun, I'm going to rest one of the skulls in my skeleton's hands. I then took my second skull and I attached it at the bottom of my potion bottle. I had a 3D skull sticker, so I added this onto the front. And finally, the last accents that I'm adding to my Skelegro bottle are these assorted spiders from the Dollar Tree. The best part of this Trash to Treasure DIY is you can use pretty much anything you already have on hand. And after my last spider was added, my Harry Potter potion bottles are complete. I'm making my second Trash to Treasure project using this old cheese grater, and it was actually put out front for free at a church yard sale. It's definitely seen better days and it has a lot of rust on it, so I just took an old piece of sandpaper and I sanded off as much of the rust as I could. It looks a little better, but I'm going to use some of my brown nutmeg spray paint and give it a complete coat. Now that it looks so much better, I'm going to turn it into a little owl witch. For my owl's eyes, I'm recycling 2 of my canning rings, and then I'm also using 2 lids from some jars that headed to the recycle bin, and I made sure that they were both the same size. I'm using some yellow acrylic paint and I'm painting the inside of both of the lids. The outside of my covers don't match. One's brown and one's gold, so I'm going to use some black Dollar Tree paint and I'm going to paint both of them so they match the same color. While those are drying, I have 2 bottle caps and I looked through my button jar and found these really cool buttons that will work for the center of the owl's eyes. I used my E6000 and placed some on the back of the button and then just attached it to the center of the bottle cap. Now that everything's had a chance to dry and set up, I'm once again using my E6000 to attach the eyes together. I placed some E6000 on the inside of the canning rings, and then I added in my yellow lids. I then added some E6000 on the back of each of the bottle caps and attached them to the yellow lids. Before I add my eyes, I'm going to bend down the handle in the center to kind of resemble the owl's ears. Now, once again, using my E6000, I'm attaching the owl's eyes to its body. To make the owl's beak, I'm using a large craft stick, and all I'm doing is cutting the end into a point. I painted the triangle with my black acrylic paint, and then using some E6000, I attached it up under the eyes. To give my witch a little cape, I'm using another piece of the creepy cloth, and I'm just wrapping it and tying it around the grater. What's a witch without a broom? I'm going to make my own by using some raffia that I had in my stash, and it's about 2 feet long. I folded it in half, and then I folded it in half again. For the handle, I'm using a thin stick that I found outside, and I'm just placing it down in the center of the raffia. I then added some twine. I wrapped it around the top of the broom and onto the handle. Once I had enough wrapped around, I then made some loop knots with my jute. I used some of the Dollar Tree farmhouse ribbon, and I made a bow accent for the broom. Then, using my glue gun, I attached it to the jute part of the broom. To make my owl's feet to hold the broom, I have this little spring, and I'm going to cut it in half. I did make sure that the broomstick would slide onto the spring before I made it, and now I'm just sliding the 2 springs onto the middle of the stick. Then, using my glue gun, I attached the springs to the broomstick. With my broomstick complete, I'm going to add on this little witch hat and silver star that I had in my stash. I used my glue gun to add the star to the cape and also to attach the witch hat to the top of the owl. To add the broomstick in place, I added on a line of hot glue, and then to hold it permanently, I added on some E6000. And with that, my grater owl witch is complete. For my third DIY, I'm using another piece of wood that I found in my kindling bin, and this one kind of reminded me of a witch's hat. Once again, the edges were a little rough, so I used my sanding block and filed them down. Then, to give it the classic witch hat color, I painted it with my Dollar Tree black acrylic paint. While my hat is drying, I'm going to make some mesh curls to decorate the bottom, and I'm using the orange, black, and purple deco mesh from the Dollar Tree. To make it easier to cut, I'm using a 6-inch piece of cardstock, and then I'm also using some of the chenille stems. I'm using orange just because I have them on hand, but you can use any color, and I'm going to cut them in half. To cut my deco mesh, all I do is wrap it around my 6-inch piece of cardstock, and then when I have enough for my project, I just cut it at both ends. With all 3 of my colors cut, I'm now going to make some curls. I'm using 1 piece each of all 3 colors and a half chenille stem, and then all I'm doing is taking 1 piece of the mesh and I'm just rolling it into a curl and then just tucking it between my fingers to hold the shape. Once I have all 3 of my colors rolled, I then pinch them between my fingers and then take the half chenille stem, wrap it around the center, and twist it tightly. After I finished my first curl, I then continued on and made a bunch more. Adding them to the hat is super easy. I first cut all my chenille stems just below the twist. Then, using my glue gun, I just hot glued them to the bottom of the hat. And I just continued working my way around the hat until the bottom of it was completely covered. With the bottom of my hat complete, I'm going to recycle this The Witches In sign from one of my past projects. Adding it to the top is super easy. I'm just sliding it over and finding its place. And now to decorate the top of the hat, I'm just going to add on a few more of those mesh curls. And now my Trash to Treasure witch hat is almost done, but I want to add on a spider accent. I'm using a long piece of floral wire and a spider from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just hot gluing the spider to the end of the wire. To attach the spider, I placed the wire on the back top of the hat, and then I hot glued it into place. To finish up, I used this pretty Halloween ribbon from the Dollar Tree, along with my bow maker, and I made a small bow. I used my glue gun to attach it into place, and when I was done, my The Witches In Trash to Treasure witch hat is complete. Thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed making these Trash to Treasure Halloween DIYs. And if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that little red subscribe button below. I hope you all have a spooky day, and I will see you soon. Bye, everybody.